All right. So the whole hi, I'm Alex. This is the Heartsmith podcast. I think that's what I'm gonna call it. If not, overlook the fact that I just misnamed what I'm calling this because yeah, whatever. Um, but I've in recent news, right? I'm late to the party, but Sony was like, we're not making discs anymore, right? So Sony decided they were going to end disc production in like 2028, right? So all games 2028 forward for Sony are gonna be digital, right? Um, that is not a good thing. That but, like, I think that other, like, companies are gonna follow suit. I mean, Steam already exists and Steam already does this, right? Because, like, I don't know, it's not good, right? But I don't think it's ever gonna be reversed because as far as a business decision, right, if you stop thinking about the player, you stop thinking about the consumer, and you say, "How can I make the most money?" Right? This is, of course, the correct decision because it's it's putting all the money coming toward here think about it this way, right? If somebody wants a game, they've got to go through Sony, and that's a whole monopoly question that I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get into later, or maybe I'll get into right now, because, like, it's almost like the corporations were eyeing the used games market, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a whole bunch of money going around for our games that we're not getting paid for, once the game's bought the first time, we don't get any returns on it after that, and so we don't get money on it. Well, how can we fix Hmm. How can we seize the used games market? Oh, let's just get rid of used games altogether because that's a good idea, right? Because it doesn't matter if it makes people mad. It doesn't matter if it pisses people off because at the end of the day, they're not that's not the consideration. They're like, "Well, it's a cost benefit analysis." It's like, "Well, how many people are going to get pissed or going to piss off and how many people are just going to move on with it and get over it?" And the answer is that most people are just gonna move on and get over it, right? Because say that you do, say you boycott PlayStation because PlayStation ends disc production, right? How long is it gonna be before Microsoft does the same thing? You think it's gonna be long before Microsoft does the same thing? No. And so you're gonna boycott both of them now, right? You're gonna boycott both of them because there's digitally only games, or you're gonna go to PC? Oh, it's Steam. Steam is the thing. Steam, or that it's a digital storefront. You're gonna boycott that too? You know, if you really wanna boycott digital only games, then your only solution is to never play a game again after, like, 2028. It's like, "New games are overrated for me, I'm gonna stick to everything that came out beforehand," and you can do that. If that's what you wanna do, you can do that, but I don't think most people are gonna do it, and that's why the decision's not gonna be reversed. And, unless something happens that I don't foresee happening, I'm not sure how you could. I mean, I don't think people's wallets are gonna be loud enough to overtake the people who just are gonna go along with it, right? But what it really is it's bad for games, right? It's bad for games and it's bad for gamers and people who play video games. First and foremost, I would say because game preservation, right? Because even right now, there's actually a game that I've been wanting to play for years that I remembered that I wanted to play, and it's almost impossible to get your hands on without taking to the 7 seas. And it's a Legend of Korra game, right? Like the sequel to Avatar. They came out with a Korra game in like 2017 or something, right? And when I think about it now, I remember thinking back to like whatever was happening when that came out and looking at the PlayStation Store and being like, "Oh, cool, a Korra game. I kind of want to try that at some point." Because I remember like I played like one of the old Avatar games like back forever ago. And I'm pretty sure it was awful, but I still loved it because it was Avatar, right? And had a feeling like, "Oh, I'm going to enjoy this," right? And apparently it's pretty good. Apparently it's probably like the best Avatar game that's ever come out. The bar wasn't super high, but you know, it was there. And because the licensing ran on it out on it after like 3 years and Activision never renewed it, you can't purchase a copy legitimately. Like it's been delisted from every store. You had to buy it during that time frame it was there, right? But you can still play it because you bought it, right? That's the only until it gets removed from the store altogether. In which case, I don't know. I don't know if the delisting seems like the option, but the legitimate way to get that game is literally just to trust that Sony is gonna keep it backed up for forever. Sony's gonna keep a record of it in the PlayStation Store, and I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think that's the case. I don't trust Sony. I see why we don't trust Sony, and that's true for any games that, like, yeah, you can have any digital immortality, right? But digital immortality is only so good as it's accessible, right? What's the point in keeping games for all of time if people can't play them, right? That's the whole point of the games is to be played. They're not meant, it's like keeping it just doesn't do it. It just that's not games, right? And, like, even more, I think about the stuff, like, not so much that, but, like, there were a lot of crappy video games I played when I was, like, a small child. Like, I don't even mean, like, like 10 years ago. I mean, like, I'm 27. I'm talking like over 20 years ago. Like those, like, cause I started out playing PC games when I was like 3 or 4 or something like that. I've played video, they've been with me my whole life. And when I was a kid, I played like those simple kid video games, right? And I remember distinctly there was a dinosaur video game where like you visited all, it was like a puzzle solving game where you visited all the like different Cretaceous period, like all the dinosaur periods. And I enjoyed it. Like, it was fun, it's what I played a lot of. I also played Thomas the Train Engine with, like, a special keyboard, but, like, I don't know where that went. Or, like, there was this game called Freddy the Fish I played, where you were like this fish solving mysteries in the sea, and, looking back at it, I remember it being really good. Was it probably a good game? Absolutely not. It was probably terrible, like children, like, shovelware, right? But, like, you can't find these games anymore. It's the same, but they were all on disc. Yeah, if you can find a disc, but the only thing that's gonna keep them alive is if they're digitally immortalized, right? Well, are they really gonna be kept up if it's just left in the hands of, like, the big companies, right? Because there's gonna come a point, it might not come soon, it might not come in the next 10 years, it might not come in the next 20 years, or it might come next year or, like, 3 years from now, right? There's gonna come a point to where somebody looks at the games that they don't that's just delisted or on the sale, or, like, they're looking at the large backlog at some point, like, "We really need to do something about this inflated catalog," "We really need to do something about all these, and what are we gonna do about it?" Like, we can't just have them taking up space somewhere, and they're gonna get deleted. Like, you're not gonna be able to access them at all anymore, and there's not gonna even be a record of them probably. Save for the people who actually care about preserving the video games and stuff. And I realize I've never mentioned the hat until now. Just get along with it. I'm not sure why the hat's on either, but the hat's on. The hat's on, right? And, that's what the concern is. The concern is really whether or not these are gonna be preserved, because, like, it's art. It's not I don't know how else to describe it, because it's like this is like something special to people. Like these games, I felt something when I played as a kid. I feel something for them now, even if it's just nostalgia, right? But these games mean something to me, and that's not to include all the games that people played that mean something to them, because we know not all of us played the same games, right? And it's hard enough because when we were like 7 years old, we weren't like we need to protect these CDs so that we'll have them when we're older. No, they got like destroyed or thrown away or like lost as things get lost over time, right? And we come back later and we're like, man, we should have done better with that. And so people are actually like trying to preserve video games right now, but if access to video games is completely controlled by like Sony and like Microsoft, right? Then and there have already been problems with like I think especially like Game Freak, right? In the Pokemon games to where, you know, they don't allow or don't want like copies of these games to be circulated online because it takes money away from actual legitimate purchases. This was but this was way before like I know that now there's a Fire Red Leaf Green port on the Switch, but like, this was before that, to where if you wanted to play those games legitimately, you needed the Game Boy Advanced, right? Or if you wanted to play, like, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, which are some of my favorite Pokemon games of all time because, like, nostalgia, I guess, but I think they're actually good games, and I think maybe because you could have Pokemon follow behind you for the first time, right? If you wanna play those games, then you're gonna have a DS if you wanna do it, legitimately. I mean, you can use an emulator, but, you gotta get the game legitimately to do that properly, you know? And I'm not saying go out here and sell the 7 Cs for video games. That's not what I'm saying. But, like, there's a reason that it happens, and it fills a need that isn't quite always kept up with, right? Because, like, there aren't that many people who are gonna be like, "You know what? I think I wanna go track down a Nintendo DS from, like, 20 years ago, because I don't know where one's at. I didn't save mine, so I'm gonna go track one down, pay a stupid amount of money for it, then pay a stupid amount of money to get another copy of the video game that I had, right? Like Soul Silver, right? Because that's what I played. and then I'm gonna play it on a super outdated console without the amenities of modern technology, when, there's an easier way where you can play it on modern technology on your computer, and you can even speed it up if you want to, like, they don't offer the same access, right? But it's about to me, it feels like it's about control, having a stranglehold on the circulation of games, right? Because if you can control the supply of something, then you can make money off of it, right? If you're the only person that has something, that's called an economic advantage, right? And so that's the whole purpose in trying to restrict it, because there's money, right? It doesn't have anything to do with, like, we value this art, and we don't want anybody else to experience the art because we made it. No, it's like, oh, no, 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 we want money, and you aren't paying us when you do stuff like this. Therefore it's illegal, because you're taking away money we could be getting if you paid for it. That's the whole argument. Like, let's cut through all the BS. Let's cut through everything that people say. That's why. But, that's why. And it comes down to greed. You know, I'm thinking of the Avatar movie right now. I'm thinking of the Avatar movie. How it got leaked online, like, way before it was even supposed to release. I've not watched it. I plan to watch it. It's coming out in, like later this week, and I plan to watch it. Right. I've been excited to watch it. And I'm watching it legitimately because I do feel bad for the release getting just completely, like, destroyed, because people aren't gonna watch it now because it got released early, right? And, yeah, I get that it was gonna be a Paramount exclusive, right? And so that's another reason that people, like, rush to it, right? But it's a genuine shame that people aren't like, these it's not gonna get the attention and recognition that it was supposed to get if it was released like it was intended to be released, right? But that was a one-time event, right? That was a one-time event where games, or where the movie is gonna be released, and then it's done, and there's not a second movie release, because you just release it once unless you find some movies that aired, like, 30 years ago, because for some reason we're bringing them back to the movie theaters. Talk about reusing old content. Um, you know, but with video games, it's a little different because you can keep playing video games, right? And which is why it's, like, shifted to a live service mentality, because if people are gonna be playing the games, then we need to charge them something for it, we need to get some money out of them if they're gonna keep playing it. Because, like, at some point, like, used to, it was, "Oh, well, you're gonna buy the disc, you're gonna buy this game, and it's gonna be the whole game experience, and you're just gonna be able to play it whenever you want." Yeah, it used to be what it was. Now it's, well, there are a select number of video games that you can play, and it's almost assuredly gonna have ways for you to spend more money, usually for the sake of progress or to get ahead or ease, right? It's not always cosmetic stuff, although when it is cosmetic stuff, it's a little better, right? Or even so, it's like we gotta justify it, right? I remember the good old days where if you wanted a cool customization, you had to go earn it in the game. There was something you had to do in game to get it. Now it's like, well, you can pay for it. What if I don't wanna pay for it? You have a very limited selection of customizable options, so you can't, because it's in the game. Like, the stuff's in the game, you just can't get them, right? I think I'd have less of a problem with it is if it was you're given it, but, like, it's not paywalled, you know? I know that some games probably do this, but not but I don't think that's the majority, right? You get your special customization packs, your horse armor from Bethesda games or whatever, right? But, see, the question really is if you buy a game, have you bought the game, right? Because I think the shift that a lot of the companies are moving towards is like, you don't buy the game, you license the game out. Like, you're buying a license from us to play the game, right? That's the whole idea of licensing, right? Game licensing, which if it's a license, that means it can be revoked. No, you're paying for the privilege of playing the video game. You're not paying. It's just like, you're like, oh, pay and you get to access the video game until we tell you you can't. Then you can't anymore, and you need to spend money on other video games now, right? It's kinda clever, like, Sony got people way more used to this than I think anybody gives them credit for, and I think Microsoft too. Because what are Microsoft and PlayStation and Sony doing? Well, they're offering PlayStation Plus and the Xbox Games Pass, right? What is happening there? Oh, you're paying a subscription service for continual access to these video games. That's the same concept. People have already adjusted to the new way of video games, and the video game companies did it and "Oh, like, we're just gonna inject this with a really good deal so you get used to it, and now, oh, all games are licensed and you have to pay for continual access." You gotta keep feeding the machine to keep everything moving, keep people buying new games because we gotta make money. We're corporations. We're businesses. We can't produce things for the sake of creation. We gotta produce things for the sake of profit. And if we're not making enough profit, that's not good. It's turned what I actually see as a very, very unique and expressive art form into, you know, s slog, into churn, you know? Because you can in video games, you can offer a kind of experience that no other medium can give you, right? Because, you can watch a movie or you can go to, like, a live action theater show like a live theater show, right? And, yeah, you can get in live theater, you can get some participation, right? But in a video game, it's not it is a curated experience, but it's a curated experience for the player. The player is the one going through the motion all in good games. Not all games allow player, like, choice and, like, the player-driven action, but, some of them you're just, like, basically going through a cutscene simulator. You're doing, like, like, I think of games like Borderlands 3 where it's like, you do the mobbing, but, like, you're absent from the story, essentially, with aside from a few lines that get dropped here or there because people want it to be there, you know? I don't know, man, like, it's not it's not good, right? And, you know where else are you gonna actually, like, be able to not watch, but truly experience the feeling of space exploration for yourself? Because most people aren't astronauts, and even less are gonna go into space, and we're nowhere near actually exploring the galaxy, right? But within the confines of a video game, we can have weird alien species on rocks that revive you whenever it's done, and we can just, like, have planet exploration with flight, like a basically flight simulator. Or you don't watch the Hulk. Like, I remember the Incredible Hulk game when I was a kid. You don't watch the Hulk, you are the Hulk, you play as the Hulk. It just video games give you a level of freedom within the medium because it's like when you really play a good game, that game has been crafted to be played like that, right? Like somebody has sat down and been like, and more than one person has sat down and be like, how can we make this game the best game we can make it? How can we improve the experience for the player, right? How do we make this a good experience, like a player wants to go through? That's fun and engaging and keeps people coming back. And it shows when people do this. Like, a game can be a dumpster fire in spaghetti code, right? It can be barely thrown together with, like, hope and duct tape, and it can be a wonderful game because the people making it cared about making it a wonderful game. I mean, it might get broken, it might be, a stupid broken game. Like, I'm thinking about, like, Battle for Bikini Bottom because it was such a good game because it was, like, it was done really well. Like, it was they cared about making it a good game. Or I'm also thinking about Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 is broken, right? So, like, it's broken, but it's a great game because the actual experience was cared about. Like, the experience was something that was for like, in the front of the developer's mind. Whereas now, far too often, what's in the forefront of developers' minds is, "How can I make money from this?" It ceased to be a means of actual expression, trying even if that expression is just, "I want people to have fun." Like Battle for Bikini Bottom, there wasn't, like, a deeper meaning to it. It wasn't trying to teach a lesson about, like, not summoning robots. I mean, I guess that sometimes I guess there is a lesson and it's, the same like, "Oh, you get what you wish for, watch out, because things can get away from you like plankton." I don't know. Like, maybe there, but the main purpose of that game was for fun. Oh, kids are gonna play this game. I want kids to enjoy playing this game. What's a good way to see if kids are gonna enjoy playing this game? I enjoy playing this game, like, there are far too many times where it feels like when developers push out a game, they've not even played the game, like, fully that going through, right? There are bugs and errors that which would have been addressed if you just played the game before you released it, or you decided it wasn't worth fixing 'em. I don't know. I don't know what the decision making process is because it looks like laziness, but maybe it's not laziness. I don't know. To me, it feels like a lot of bugs would be worked out if you just played the game before you released it in its finished state. Not, I know that there's patches and people and like developers fix games all the time, but like you need to have like a finished state. And I think the internet has ruined that because you can just patch it later. You know, now you can just patch games if you feel like they need tweaked later on. But what it's headed toward, so I think let's take Sony for example, because I saw that there have been like lawsuits filed against this, right? Like antitrust stuff. But like because what happens is it looks like Sony is going to have a monopoly on the games, not just on the PlayStation games market. There is no other option, right? I guess at least even with Steam, there's technically some competition now. Like there's Epic, even if nobody uses Epic. There's Epic or like other like Origin, like EA's tried to start their own thing. Wait, I'm not even sure that still exists, right? Or you can buy like even if you bought physical copies, typically you got to activate it on Steam. But Steam isn't big about like PlayStation. You got to like log in every so often to verify the licenses or whatever. I don't think that's a thing with Steam. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's a thing with Steam. Like you can set up games from other services to play through Steam. Like I don't. Steam's a little different, right? But if Sony corners the market, I mean, they're gonna make all the profit from video games, right? But what if, say, I know Sony's gonna do that, but what if everybody else follows suit, as they probably will, to keep up with the profits? That's like Sony's gonna turn record profits, and then shareholders are gonna be like, "Why are you not doing this?" And then it's gonna go like Nintendo's gonna. I don't. I actually know. Maybe Nintendo will be the good guys here, and Nintendo will keep because they seem to really focus on their game cartridges a little bit. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Nintendo won't be the good guys and keep it alive somehow. But like, let's say that does happen. You know who gets hurt by that? Have you heard of used video game stores whose whole thing is the buying and selling of used video games? Now, I know that they've declined in recent years, and in fact, the used video game stores that I have seen and known, like I guess even GameStop kinda, I think not GameStop doesn't exist anymore. I don't think it exists anymore. Maybe I'm misinformed, but I don't think it exists anymore. And but the other used games have shifted from just being video games to being like vinyl and records and like trading cards to like a nostalgia store and like a nerd store. Instead of it just being about video games, it's like all nerd stuff comes here. Like I think some even do comic books too. Like there's just a wide variety of stuff that they dip their toes into because that's what they had to do, right? Because they weren't, and you know, there will come a point. It seems like sooner rather than later where yeah, they'll be able to have control over what games do exist in circulation, like discs do exist in circulation, but for the most part, they're not gonna be able to continue. Like, there's gonna be an end to them, right? Like I said earlier, it's almost like these corporations have been eyeing the used games market like, "How can we corner this? How can we get all the money that goes into here?" I mean, that's what it seems like sometimes. Now, is that really what's happening? Not, explicitly, but maybe, that is kind of the thought process that's going is like, how can we if you think, how can we make more money from our video games, even if you're not consciously aware of the used games market being the thing you're drawing your money from, right? That that's where you're that's where you're hurting. If you hurt that area, that's where you're taking the money from, right? If you're causing harm, you're causing monetary harm that you're seeking to benefit from as the corporation. And you may be saying, Alex, why are you referring to the corporation as though it's a singular entity? Because corporations are people too, according to like law. And so if corporations want to be people too, then let's treat them like people too. Let's hold them to people standards. If corporations are a people, then let's see how unethical. First off, it's ridiculous that corporations get seen like that. But that's a lot of the reason that like they can donate the money they do to politics, right? Oh, because legally they're people and have the rights of people because they're made up of people, and it's like, well, but here's the thing: the corporation's only thing it has to do to survive is be greedy. A corporation that's a corporation's job is to make money. like a trading company, right? The concept's been around for forever, right? Technically, if you think about it, corporations are who settled America. They're like the East India Trading Company. Sometimes I wonder if they ever lost any control, or if they still, whatever it became, you know. I don't think we quite see the. Oh my gosh, my throat is so itchy. Because the real question here, what we all need to ask is of art preservation, and I'm saying that quite knowing how I'm saying that, because it's like, if we don't own, there is this argument, right? And I'm not going to go too deep in it. I'm not going to try to explain it. I'm going to let, if you're here this late into it, I want you to come to the conclusion for yourself. Because this is a saying that I've tried to break it apart to try to really reason with it, right? And I can't properly do it. I'm being honest. I can't properly do it. Like, there's always a block or something getting in the way of me fully dissecting this statement, right? But something about it just feels incredibly true, right? And it's, if if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. If there's no such thing as digital ownership, then you're not stealing a possession by pirating, because it's not owned. You say, "Well, there are rights owned." Yeah, but the game itself is not owned. That's the whole argument, is that the game's not owned, the licensing to the game is owned, not the game. And so how can you steal something that can't be owned? I mean, I guess this gets into sticky territory, because people would be like, "Yeah, well, you stole my wife or you stole my husband," but, like, is that really what happened? Because, like, you don't own them. See, that opens up another can of worms. There's no perfect stance here. There are always holes in every argument. Nothing's bulletproof. Nothing is without, pushback, right? That doesn't mean things don't need to be said, because I think, and I've done this before too, is it's like, you wait so long because what you're wanting is like an impregnable, like, argument, an impregnable, like, position, right? Waiting for it to be perfect before you say it, because there's no way I can say this and have it up for scrutiny when there are holes in it that I kinda see, right? But that's not how things work. Nothing's perfect. Even the best argument has holes. Even the best arguments aren't perfect. You can rebuttal all of them. I don't even know how I got here from art preservation, but this is, you know, this is how I got it. But, like, do you it's the experience that matters. Like, when you play a video game, it's not the game. It's not even really the artwork in the game, despite the fact that there's a lot of effort that goes into just designing, like, sets that people aren't, when you're playing a game, sometimes you don't even look at it. I try to slow down now. Like, literally, like, I have been playing a game to where I have been making myself not sprint everywhere. I'm making myself walk, because I'm like, there's no reason for the character to be sprinting right now. I'm properly trying to role play. Like, it's actually kind of fun, because you take in more stuff, right? If you're not sprinting around the map, you're not, like, laser focused on the next objective, and you're actually taking in the experience. It's actually a better experience this way. That's why people talk about immersion being such a, like, a thing in video games. Because the more immersed you are in a video, well, some games you can play and break the immersion completely, and it's still fun, right? But those aren't those are different games. Or sometimes, like, just the gameplay loop is so engaging that you don't need the rest of it, right? But some games thrive on that immersion, right? And if you're just running at full blast through everything, then you're not, like, who runs everywhere? I mean, seriously, do you sprint everywhere? Because I don't sprint everywhere. I barely sprint at all. You know, the only time I sprint is whenever I'm really trying to get my heart rate pumping for, like, some cardio. And despite how I may look, I've actually been in shape before, and I plan on being in shape again. I'm just not right now. Congratulations. You probably can't tell that much. I'm not sure how bad I look on camera, if I look like I'm the weight I am, but I wear weight well, because I come from big people. better than most. I think I'm okay, at this point, I'm really just, like, circling around to weird things instead of, like, hammering in on it, right? But the point being is that experience is, like, fundamental to a game. Right. Unlike and like you every person can have a little bit different of an experience, right? I know that because that's how art gets perceived. Everybody perceives art differently, and so you're gonna perceive it differently. You're gonna key in on different things. It's like the Borderlands 2 example, right? Part of what draws me back to Borderlands 2 is the story of it so good. Like the whole Angel twist, the whole Angel is Jack's daughter, right? And because playing Borderlands 1, you're like the angel is like the guardian angel is like guiding you through the whole game, and then go into Borderlands 2 and to be like, you're being tricked by her, and then to find out it's actually like her dad controlling her because she's a very powerful siren, and you end her life to end her like servitude. And it's a very monumental moment that then just gets topped by like Roland's death. If you've not played Borderlands 2, I'm so sorry, but like because spoilers, but like, that game is, like, 14, 15, like, 14 years old. If you've not played it by now, I doubt you're going to, you know? I mean, maybe on the off chance you start and pick it up, but I doubt it. I really doubt it. And I think it's just a shame because, like, because of how dedicated some people become to video games. Like, if you ever looked at the speedrunning community, I don't mean, like, people who speedrun new games. I mean people speedrunning community, like, retro speedrunning, where you speedrun the games that you played as a kid. Which is weird because it's like that's how I tried to play the game as a kid. I'm not sure how else I can explain it, but, like, when I was a kid, I would always be like, "Let's see how fast I can go through this." I guess in part because I never saved my games and I always had to start from the beginning, so I'm like, "If I can go really fast, I can get through a lot more of the game," right? And so even, like, some, like, tricks and stuff, like, I just stumble across myself because like, not big ones, but, like, because I'm trying to do it as fast as possible because I wanna get on to the next part. I wanna get on to the game this time, I wanna get to the end game this time. But it keeps those games alive when otherwise they probably wouldn't survive any longer, right? It's a way to keep those games because people are dedicated to those games because those games mean something to people, and so people wanna keep them relevant, right? It's not just a competition, right? It's also a way to keep old games relevant. Like, I don't know what gaming's gonna look like in 20 years. I don't know what the world's gonna look like in 20 years. Maybe I'm talking about moot points because everything's gonna collapse here in 10, and nobody gonna be worried about how we're gonna protect video games then, I don't know. I don't know. But I said what I had to say. Perhaps badly, but I said what I had to say. I've been Alex. This has been the Heartsmith Podcast.